Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 28th, 2018. The Planning and Zoning Commission is a citizen advisory group to the City Council charged with making recommendations concerning land use plans, planning processes, and/or on matters of plan implementation. All regular meetings of the Planning and Zoning Commission are recorded for record retention and transcription. So the following is the official agenda of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Discussion and commission action will be limited to those items on the agenda. Any citizen who wishes to address the commission shall first be recognized by the chair and shall give his or her name and address for the record. If a citizen wishes to read documentation of any sort to the commission, he or she shall first seek permission from the chair. Oral testimony may be restricted to no more than 3 minutes per person. Agenda item number 1 is the roll call and disclosure of conflict of interest, ex parte communication, and site visit. So Aislinn, would you call the roll, and if each commissioner would please state their name and what area they're from and anything else that they might need to disclose.
Bill Hancock.
I'm Bill Hancock. I'm from the Lewis and Clark neighborhood, and I have nothing else to report.
Sean Hargraves.
I'm Sean Hargraves. I reside in the University neighborhood. I did a site visit for agenda item number 3 and have nothing else to report.
Jack Moore.
My name is Jack Moore. I live in the Old Town District and I have nothing else to report.
Sarah O'Connor.
My name is Sarah O'Connor. I live in the college neighborhood. I made a site visit on agenda item number 4 and I have nothing else to report.
Julia Sanders.
My name is Julia Sanders. I live in the South Park area. I completed a site visit on agenda items 3 and 4 and have nothing else to report.
Chair Satterfield.
I'm Ryan Satterfield from the Highland area. Did a site visit on agenda item number 4 and had some conversations with some citizens about agenda item number 4 as well. Nothing else to report. Okay, we will now go to agenda item number 2, which is approval of minutes. Commissioners, if you've reviewed the minutes, I'd be open to a motion.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Moore, seconded by O'Connor. Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Moore.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Hancock.
Yes.
Hargraves.
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Satterfield.
Yes. Motion carries. Agenda item number 3, public hearing for a contract rezone. This time has been set aside for the Commission to hear comments from the public regarding a request by Aaron Bucklew for a contract rezone for property in the 1500 block of South First Avenue. The request is to rezone by contract from residential commercial professional to light industrial to be utilized for storage and a shop for personal use. And so if we could start by hearing from the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Bucklew. I have applied for a contract rezone for the lot that I own on First Avenue. And have appreciated Matt and Aislinn as I've kind of gone through the process of figuring out what I needed to do in order to do this. When I bought the property originally, which was purchased from Monty Price, the previous owner was aware that it was in an RCP zone and had understood that I probably would need to go through some process, wasn't aware at the time that it was a contract rezone, to build what I had kind of ultimately purchased the property for, which is just a personal shop, storage for family use. And so again, kind of in meeting with people in planning and development, kind of figured out this process and submitted my application for the contract rezone for light industrial, from RCP to light industrial. So that's all I have, and thanks for the consideration.
Very good. Are there any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Staff, if we could hear from Matt.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission members, Matthew Lewis, Senior Planner. Just one clarification I'd like to make is this is just an outright rezoning. We talked about a contract, but One thing on this one is that the comprehensive plan map actually has this property designated as light industrial. So I think that was within the agenda item that needs to be clarified. As Mr. Buckaloo noted, he met with me a couple times over about a year and explained to him the situation where it was zoned RCP. Under that zoning, to allow what would be considered an accessory structure, i.e. a garage shop, that it required construction of a residence. He was not desirous of that, just simply desirous of constructing the shop, and the garage, and so we're a storage building, and so he has applied for the rezoning that's before you. As far as the uses around that property, the site, there's self-storage units that are right across the street to the east. There's a personal storage shop that abuts the property on the southern border. Union Pacific Rail Yard is located on the west, and there are some single-family homes and townhome residents that are kind of in what would be the southeast. And so a lot of this area really is kind of light, will fall into the light industrial category. The staff did not receive, me personally, any calls or any letters from anybody opposed, neutral to, in favor of. My colleague Carl did receive one call, and they were in favor of that, of the proposal that's before you. So in regards to the area, the criteria that is used to evaluate the rezoning and so forth, staff does recommend approval of the application that's before you. But just note that sign was placed out on the property. Notice was in the newspaper, and also to property owners within a 300-foot radius of the subject property. If the commission may wish to render a recommendation and request the chair to authorize and sign the findings of fact and recommendation. As my presentation, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt? All right, thank you. With that, we will now open for public testimony. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. We will go in the following order. First, those who are in favor of the application. Second, those who are neutral on the application. And third, those who are opposed to the application. Anybody giving testimony will need to state their name and address prior to giving that testimony. So with that, if there are any who are in favor of the application that would like to speak, please come forward.
We need to open the public hearing with the gavel.
With the gavel, it's been opened. Any that are neutral on the application that would like to come forward? And any opposed to the application that would like to speak? Very good. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, it's now open to discussion.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense based on what's around it.
fits well.
Yep. I would certainly entertain a motion if anybody would like.
I'll make a recommendation on the request and authorize the chair to sign the findings of fact.
Very good. Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
So it's been moved by O'Connor and seconded by Moore. Aislinn, would you call the vote?
O'Connor,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Hancock,
Yes.
Hargreaves,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Satterfield.
Yes. Motion carries. All right, agenda item number 4, preliminary plat, The Crossings, Division 1. Michael Jaglowski of Portneuf Development, LLC, represented by Chris Adams of Creek Hollow, has submitted a request to subdivide 37.31 acres into 100 lots located east of I-15, north of Chubbuck Road, on an extension of Olympus Drive. If we could hear from the applicant.
This is the fun part, to see if this is going to start up again. Oh, the fun is just starting, guys. And you as well, my friend. All right. Well, good evening. My name is Mike Jaglowski. I'm with Portneuf Development. Real quickly, I want to tell you that I'm excited to be here. This is the first of many preliminary plats and opportunities that we're going to have just north of Chubbuck Road. And so I'm happy to be here presenting this. I'm not going to show you the goosebumps, but I can assure you that I've got goosebumps going on right now, which means things are good on that. Before I get started too much, I wanted to introduce, I have total of 3 other partners. There's 4 partners. There's Nathan, Pat, and then also Ken Poppy on that. And then, of course, Chris is here. And a special person that I wanted to introduce is Walter Hart. He is a landowner and is very interested in helping move this forward. But what I want to do is, first, as we get going, I wanted to have you take a step back into time in November of 2017. Talked a lot about preliminary, or not preliminary plat, but annexation. We showed you a lot of pictures up there. There we go. Wanted to show you this. This is something that we had up before, and we talked about what was going to happen on here, and we talked a lot about zoning. We talked about, and let's see if you're able to see. Okay, we talked about foot traffic and bike traffic, but really what we're going to be concentrating on is over there at Chubbuck, and let's see if I can, there we go. We're going to be focusing right here at this corner, Chubbuck Road and Olympus Road, on that, and really where this house is sitting right here. And that's the reason why I bring that to your attention is that there is essentially 300 acres here, and when you look at a preliminary plat, there's a bunch of lines and different things, and we'll explain that here real quickly. So here's our preliminary plat, and like I said, there's a bunch of lines, but let me draw your attention again to this area. If you can see me, that is the center line of Chubbuck Road and the center line of Olympus as it goes to the south, and north is up on this, of course, and as it was read, there are 100 lots in here, with the majority of the land either residential or open space. And I wanted to demonstrate that here, because that just makes it a little more clear. But the total residential in here is 77 lots. And the way that breaks out is that there's a total of 65. What we have is just single-family residential, but it's split into 2 different zones. Medium density single-family, and then also RCP in that as well. And is what we have just strictly in the remaining RCP portion that's dedicated to residential are 12 single-family townhomes, or what we call the cottages. And here in just a little bit, I'll show you what those will look like. Also, a part of this is that for the balance of the RCP lots, oh my goodness, you should look at this. This is a lot better color than what that is up there. But there's a total of 16 RCP, or remaining RCP lots in there, and those are primarily commercial or office professional. And a lot of people say, well, what is commercial? Is commercial retail? Is it eateries? Is it gas stations? Are there banks? Are there, title companies and all the different things? And the answers are yes. Commercial just really kind of takes everything together, but we want to capture the energy right at the corner of Chubbuck Road and Olympus, as right now we're experiencing 5,000 to 6,000 trips per day coming in and out of that. in and out of that area, and using that energy to present some opportunities of what we call neighborhood commercial, or commercial that is likely to be seen in neighborhoods, and that neighborhood, people that live in those neighborhoods or those communities would also want to frequent those locations. And so there's usually a real nice blend to that. The last part that I mentioned is this open space, and we have 16.16 acres of open space. Primarily 5.6 of it, or excuse me, 5.6 acres is right there in that green area. The other half acre is just right here in the middle, and I recognize that it's not being shown, but this open space in here, we are intending that to be more of an open space for that island type of area. If you recall, there's about 15 lots that go around that middle section there, and the lots are tight. They're purposely that way. That's what the focus groups are telling us that makes the most sense in that area. But we want to offer a little bit of that open space so people can have smaller fences, or even not even any fences in the backyard, so that they can use that at their discretion as if it is part of their yard. And I don't want to paint too much of a picture because we just really don't know exactly what that's going to be, but it's our intention to have that open space back there so that people will be able to have that as a community enjoyment, or that specific community enjoyment on there. And like we were talking about earlier, I wanted to show you some of the ideas that we have for homes and for commercial buildings. But this here, I mentioned a lot about the cottages, and these cottages, as you can see, there's no parking in front on that. There is a smaller front yard that's in front there. They're about 26 to 28 feet wide. They're deep. Sometimes they're 2 stories, sometimes they're single story. But the main important part here is that you don't see a garage in the front. The garage and everything is loaded from the back. All the traffic that is generated from from this residential type of complex is going to be entered and accessed through the back. And then visitors and different things like that would go and be able to go through the front or the back if they have the code, I guess, that type of deal. But you look at and that comprises of 12 lots that would look something like these 3 houses here, these 3 cottages here. The other portions of them will have garages in the front, which is depicted here and on this side over here, and cars would enter front and back. But these are the ones, as you've examined on the plat there, these are the ones that are on the north side of Paradigm Lane. And then this is just an idea of what we have for a commercial building. What we're depicting here is something that has multiple stories. I can't promise a 4-story because really there's no one that's designing a 4-story building on our property right now. But we are looking for things that are dimensionally as wide as they are tall. So if you have something that's 30 feet wide, we'd like to see it try to be 30 feet tall or taller than what a normal single-story building is. Something to add depth, something to, as you're driving down this road, you're kind of flanked by these different not residents, but these different commercial units that are going to be pointing their way right over to the interstate and right over into the district area, which is where we talked about before. But really, that's from our aspect. That's right where we're at. We're really interested. We think that we probably have the best place in the whole valley. And I'm sure that you hear that from all the developers, but really with the largest playground just right across the street from it, and what we're trying to create in the Northgate district, across the ravine on that, it's going to be a really interesting place to be in. And in closing, I'll go back to, I got to find my cursor here now. There it is. Ta-da. In closing, really what I'd like to say is thank you. This has been a long road. This has been an opportunity that we are very excited to get kick-started, and this is an important part to us. Thank you.
All right,
Mr.
thank you.
Chair.
Thank you. Questions for Mike?
I have a quick question. So the half acre of open space here, I realize we have the 5.6 in the back, but did the focus groups help you decide that half acre was enough open space within that residential area?
No, what we learned is that people are interested in placing, or I should say there's a good sized group of people wanting to place the largest house they can on the smallest lot. But they enjoy having the opportunity of having more open space. Okay, so me as a person with the whole crew of kids, I want to have as big a lot as I can. So I'm kind of an opposite from this. And so what our position is to having that open and to having people that would be able to either open a gate and move into that space, not move, but walk into that space and use it the way that they feel like, throwing a baseball or tossing a frisbee or entertaining in any which way that they could. Or they can be as private as they want and they can close the gate, or they can not go into that part of their shared backyard.
Okay. Who would be responsible for maintaining that open space?
Initially, it's the HOA.
Okay. I have a question where you talked about the commercial buildings not being over, so far not going over 3 stories high. I just wanted to, because that's a concern up there, because people buy for the view. And granted, there isn't anything to the east of that yet. I wouldn't want something too high that could interfere with anyone's view up there. Because they want the view to the west.
Sure. No, as do I. I would want the view to the west also. The purpose of us zoning it as RCP is that is really the guidance that we have to go by. And I think that there's a height requirement. And if I said that we didn't want something to go over 30 feet or we want to go higher or lower, that's really governed by the current city ordinance on there. What I was trying to say is that we want to project some depth. We want to project some height. We didn't want just basement type of, that type of thing. We wanted, things to kind of stand up. But once those lots are completely committed, then it becomes someone else's responsibility to build within that ordinance.
Do you anticipate that any of those would be business on the ground floor with lofts above it?
There's been some attention to that, but at this point, there's been no one that's stepped forward and interested in talking further, other than, could this happen? And our response is, yes, it can.
Real quick on the cottages.
Mm-hmm.
You had said, you showed them as being separate, but on your thing, it's townhomes, so they would be connected. Which one are they? Are they separate units, like with space between each building, or are they going to be connected? Shared walls?
That's still completely determined as we move to the next phases, the next parts of that. We made them that size to conform with ordinance on that, and once it opened up that much, we were able we found plans that made sense with the rest of our development to be able to have them as individual, or we could make them a different way. We can have them connected like twin homes. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity within that RCP zoning on that. I think initially we're looking at the cottage concept. However, if it makes sense, if it makes more sense to have them connected with the space or have a shared center line, then that is also that's allowed in the RCP zone.
My question was asked about that common area, and you said it'd be initially turned into a homeowners association. Is that the same with the 5.5 acres, that would also be deeded over to a homeowners association? What do you see occurring there?
That's a good question. That's shared in the staff report. I think in the staff report, in item 1, I think number 4 in there, initially it's looked at as a homeowners association responsibility.
Okay. And that would be your intent?
Yeah, that's the direction we're looking at. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities, of seeing what makes sense in that area.
Okay.
But initially, I can say this for all assurity, initially, it's to our best interest to be able to create that space the best way that we can, so it's a sustainable area for that community and, the adjacent communities, which is, to the north, the JV or the Northgate District area, and also to the south, which is this area here.
One more question. Can you kind of talk about, and as far as Chubbuck Road goes, your intent then, and I can't really tell and I'm not fully sure, is there a widening that's occurring along there as far as what improvements you're planning on doing there?
That's correct. Right now, what is set apart is a 50-foot right-of-way on that. And the center line, it's 25 feet on either side of the center line. We are proposing 6 feet on our side to bring it to 31 feet, and we are petitioning the county to have adding 31, or adding 6 feet on their side to have a total of 31 feet. Right now, we are right in the middle of the traffic impact analysis, and it's proving, our vision is, regardless if there's an impact from the traffic or not, our vision is that we'll have a 3-lane road there with a center turn lane and then through lanes on either side. Right now, a configuration like that moves, almost twice to 3 times the amount of traffic that you have on that road now on that. So we're looking at a 3-lane structure, curb gutter. We would have a sidewalk. Our impression is that we'd have the sidewalk on the north side, we'd have some landscape buffer, and then we would go right into the edge of that 31 feet. And then there would be setbacks and different things that would occur further to the north into the commercial lots. I think it's lot 1 through 7, block 1.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mike?
Yes, you mentioned about if visitors for the cottages had the code to get in, would there be a gate, or what's the code?
That's a good question. Just as soon as I said that, I thought, oh, Jaglowski, this is a can of worms. On that, the code is the garage code for them to get into someone else's garage. And so, but no, we weren't going to have gates up in front of there. That would be something, the homeowners that would occupy that space would want to have people like emergency vehicles, trash vehicles, that type of thing, to be able to get into, at least past the curb and gutter and sidewalk, get into there to deliver their mail, to pick up garbage, to do, the different things that they need to do. But there's no intent to have, some type of gate across that.
Mike, where would visitors park to go, since there's not a drive out front, and on the back it's pretty narrow lots and spaces? If someone's going to visit them there in their cottage, where do you anticipate that they park? How does that get accomplished?
Okay, so the smarty pants answer is I would want them to park in the wellness center and walk through all the nice trails and then hop on over to that side, but that's a smarty pants in me. The real answer is that lot 1, block 3, I think it is, lot 1, block 2 maybe, just right on the north side of Paradigm there is a 57-foot lot that's set aside for access and easement, or not easement, but access into the back, as well as pretty close to, I think it's 27 extra feet that we would need, that we could park and have landscape buffers in and around that zone.
There'd be enough on that alleyway, I know that's not the correct term for it, but enough space there to park.
Yeah, so what our goal is to have enough space in back to house 2 vehicles inside of the garage, and at least 1 vehicle, if not 2 vehicles, and depending on what you drive, if you drive a small vehicle, you could get 2 into the driveway in the back, but for sure you'd have a place to park, the 2 vehicles that a normal household would have in the garage, and then 1 extra space in the back also. That would be in the driveway. That's what our vision is. And then if there is additional, then you would first want to occupy that space, and if there's additional after that, then there's most likely going to be parking across the street, inside the commercial and the commercial area that we have over there.
Do you anticipate parking on Chubbuck Road, or would it?
Oh, that's a great question. No, we would discourage parking on Chubbuck Road. Absolutely. We want traffic to move through there just as easy as it can. Wider lanes.
Much like Olympus Drive is now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, but please recognize Olympus Drive has, 5 lanes in some places, right? It is a huge road, and that is not what Chubbuck Road is going to be. Chubbuck Road is going to be 3 lanes, which 1 lane going to the east, 1 lane going to the west, and then 1 lane that you would pull off into like a merge lane, and you can turn to the north into a couple of the different places that we have shown there. And then if there's any more access that needs to go into the wellness center, then they can pull and move into the wellness center, as well as merge if they're going east and west in there. But really, that type of road functions very well. If there is a turning movement or if there's someone that wants to go north, they go off the lane of traffic, they stop and they wait until their cue so that they can make that left turn. In the meantime, everyone's continuing east, right? They're not stopped and waiting for someone to catch a gap and go, because people, driving's a behavior and people get impatient and then they start making bad decisions.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mike.
All right, great. Thank you.
So now if we could hear from staff, Carl?
Did you want that?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Carl Anderson, a senior planner here at the City of Pocatello, for the record. As stated in the agenda and by the applicant, you have before you a preliminary plat application for the Crossings Division 1 subdivision. The application calls for the subdivision of 100 lots, which encompasses 37.31 acres, and was submitted by Michael Jagowski of Fortnite Development, LLC, and Kent Orem of Idaho Central Credit Union in a joint application. The property was recently annexed as part of the larger Northgate annexation, and the subject property is located east of I-15, north of Chubbuck Road, and west of the future extension of Olympus Road. Currently, as proposed, there are 42 lots that have a residential medium-density single-family zoning designation, and 52 that have a residential commercial professional zoning designation. There are 6 additional lots that have a split zoning, but based on majority zoning, which is practiced by staff. 2 of those lots have an R restriction, which makes them unbuildable. 3 have residential commercial professional zoning, and 1 would be residential medium-density single-family. Additionally, per the Public Works requirement contained in the staff report, all lots abutting Chubbuck and Olympus Road will have an R restriction on them preventing access onto Chubbuck and Olympus. With the correction from Exhibit 1, Lot 2 rather than Lot 4 of Block 2 will be permitted for right in, right out. And Merrill Quell, Public Works Department, is also here to elaborate on that further. Staff has reviewed the application and recommends approval of the preliminary plat for the Crossings Division 1, but with the conditions listed in the staff report in Exhibit 1. With that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and Merrill Quell, again, is here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carl. Questions for Carl? Or any questions for Merrill?
I might have a question for Merrill.
All right, thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Merrill, if you could come forward.
Merrill Quell, the Public Works Development Engineer for the City of Pocatello.
So Merrill, I used to live in St. Louis in a home that had this alleyway type system. Is there going to be any problem of getting any of the utility vehicles or emergency vehicles in the proposed alleyway system?
The alleyways that I've looked at, from the concept of the preliminary plat, the 20-foot minimum is the alleyways that we have. If there's any obstructions, because it should be set back far enough with the vehicles and everything to 26 feet, if needs be, for fire emergency services, because the way I'm envisioning this is the alleys is going to run right into the driveway areas. This format I have also seen in some developments that was given to us, and I took a trip one day and drove down through some of them. And at this point, and from what we've seen without a lot of the details, I feel that this will be adequate.
Okay. Does that include snowplows? That was always my biggest
Snowplows, this will be private. This will not be public. This will be up to the homeowners there, and however that's set up to clean their own and make sure that it's able to pass the garbage trucks, for instance, and that on those days. So that will be a private activity.
Okay.
Other questions for Merrill? Merrill, can you talk to the 3 lanes down Chubbuck Road and the city's perspective on that for traffic, and do we feel like we're comfortable with what is being proposed here there?
Sure. The perspective that we've been looking at on Chubbuck Road itself, of course, what was brought up, there will be no parking. Limited access. The accesses to Chubbuck Road along that will be for roadways only, and then the pedestrian paths that cross. So there will be limited access. Therefore, three lanes with a turn lane down the middle, so that at those areas that can have a protected left turn and getting out of a left turn movements, and up to 12-foot lanes down through there with bike paths and the 5-foot sidewalks along the way for the majority of the path. One thing I think would, as we've been pointed out, is that we're looking at the Olympus Road, which will be going in Northgate Parkway. There will also be 5 lanes. So a lot of our traffic, the way we look, and the traffic study that's being done at this time, so that we can evaluate that and those movements, we'll be able to, I believe, prove that the Chubbuck Road will have certain pods that will use that street, and we'll find that it is decreased because the majority will start to use, the interstate system, siphon to Northgate Parkway, and so forth there. So I believe we're gonna see a decrease. Also, if you were to look on the already built out section in Chubbuck on the other side, on the west side of I-15, you're going to see that the 3 lanes that are there, and I can't remember the distance, I think it's a little over 1,000 feet distance between their roundabout and so forth back to Highline, would take major funds for one, and then to take that section to 5 lanes. Just so the public is aware too, that there is work in design process right now for what we call the Flying Y section, and that bridge that goes over I-15 there at Chubbuck will be looked at also, the widths, and preliminarily right now and in concept that's being looked at to be widened out so that it can handle a little better traffic, but mostly for the bicycle and foot traffic that crosses there. For those that go across there now, knows that the lanes are narrow, and for runners and pedestrians and that, it's a little narrow. So preliminary in concept, that's what has been discussed, and it's my understanding what's going to happen there too. So there's your restrictions for what is happening there.
Very good, thank you. Other questions from Merrill? All right, thank you, Merrill.
Thank you.
Commissioners, it's before you. Any discussion?
I'd move that we approve agenda item number 4.
I'll second that.
Subject to the staff, I should say that subject to the staff's recommendations.
Okay, yes.
Very good. Okay, it's been moved by Hancock, second by O'Connor. Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Hancock,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Hargraves,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Satterfield.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, and that concludes our meeting.